Hello everyone, my name is Andrew Manzi, Technical Marketing Manager at Autodesk, and welcome to this brief course on mobility simulation, Know the Basics. Welcome to module number 2, Pedestrian Simulation. Okay, so we're going to be looking at a purely pedestrian simulation in this module. So what we will do is we will create and run a basic pedestrian mobility simulation, and we are going to be looking at how we build the network completely from scratch. We are going to look at layers, walkways, handles, people areas, how to use imagery, and we're also going to look at the simulation criteria, so a lot of the parameters around the simulation itself, and we'll include demands and divisions in that. So the pedestrian simulation is going to consist of 3 mini simulations, if you like. So the first one is going to be a super basic simulation. We're going to look at the basic tools, the basic limitations, and using this really basic simulation, you're going to understand basically how mobility simulation operates. That's the main thing. We're going to very quickly just build a simulation of literally one walkway and just move people from point A to point B. Once we've completed that, you'll understand pretty well how mobility simulation works. So once we've done that, we're going to do something a little bit more interesting. So it's still going to be quite a basic simulation, but we're just going to be introducing a little more complexity into the network itself. So you'll see this is going to be something similar to what you're looking at on the bottom right-hand side there. So this could be passport control, or it could be any system where you have to queue, at events. These concertina type queuing systems are, and ticketing systems are very common, almost everywhere we go these days. And so we're going to see how we can build a simulation based around that, and then finally, after we've done that, I'm going to look at how we can use basic imagery to make it a little bit easier for us to build simulations. Okay, so this is going to be the what I've called the super basic simulation, and we're going to play this video, and we can listen to what he has to say. Okay, so we're in InfraWorks. We have a model loaded. It can be any model for our purposes. The model itself is not going to have any relevance to this example. It's just a method by which to launch mobility simulation. So any model's fine. Just go to Analyze, Transportation, and then hit Mobility Simulation. So it'll ask you to create a traffic study area. Again, this is irrelevant to us at this time, so just click randomly a polygon to create something, and then when it asks you about do you want to convert planning roads, just say no. Okay, and then if we click inside that polygon and then hit mobility simulation, it'll give us another warning which we can ignore, and then mobility simulation will be launched. And what it will do is it will launch it with a model based on this InfraWorks model that we're looking at the moment, and we will discard that and start afresh once we're in mobility simulation. If there are any warnings, just click through those until you see something very similar to what I'm looking at. Okay, so as you can see, it has created this model based on InfraWorks. We're going to ignore that. So I'm just going to say File, new, and then just cancel out of this wizard. Okay, so we now have a brand new mobility simulation model. So the first thing we need to do is to make sure we are in the right orientation. So we always need to be working in plan on mobility simulation when we're creating networks. So best thing to do is just click on that at the top there, and that will orient us correctly. The next thing to just check is that you're in orthographic mode. That is the best mode to be creating networks in. If you don't see orthographic here, it means it's in perspective. Okay, it won't say perspective, it will just be blank. So you need it to say orthographic. So the way to get there is just to press O on the keyboard, and then this should pop up, and then you're set. Okay, so for our very basic simulation, the easiest way to get us started is just to put a walkway in, and then we'll make the adjustments from there. So this is the cursor, and this is where all the components are entered. So with my middle mouse wheel, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to scroll in, and you can see these values changing as I'm doing that. Okay, so I want something that's going to be about 20 or 30 meters long, so something like that. And then I'm just going to right click, and then I'm going to go down to walkway, and I'm going to say new walkway cursor. It will now display a dialog box. Don't worry too much about these top two, they'll come later. Basically, we're just interested in what the width is and what the length is. So we can leave the default length if we want to, or we can type length in, say 30 meters, and then click OK. And there is our first walkway. So there is a little bit of data down the side here when anything is selected, but if I press escape, we'll have just two vertical lines. So I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit with my mouse wheel. Okay, that's fine. Let's put it there. Okay, so you can see here that there's not a lot for us to see, just two lines, which is the edges of the walkway, and that's not going to be enough for us to physically manipulate this model. So we need to turn on some layers which are not turned on by default. Okay, so if we go over to the right hand side here and hit layer, you'll see there's a matrix of parts which we can turn on and off, and each one of these columns represents a layer set. So if I click through these at the top, you'll see that different things appear and disappear depending on which set I have running at the time. So there's not a lot built in this particular model, just a walkway, so not a lot to see. But if I go back to the first one, and then we can start turning on the ones that we really need. So the first one that we really want are the walkway center lines. So if I just click that, that will turn that on. We'll also need walk connections. Now, we're not going to be making any connections for this super basic example, but you will need them going forward. So just make a habit of having that one checked on. And then the only other ones that are really necessary is handle end and handle other. Okay, so that now has most of the things turned on that's going to enable us to manipulate this particular walkway. So if I just select it with my middle button, and then with my left button, pick it and move it about, that is actually moving the position of the walkway itself. Okay, not the view, that's the actual walkway moving about. Okay, and also if I select this handle with my middle button and then pick it with my left button, I can then manipulate it like this. Okay, So let's have it at an angle maybe, make it a bit more interesting. Okay, so the next thing to get our basic simulation up and running is we need some people areas. And those are components from which the people are going to emanate from, and they're also going to work as the destinations. Okay, so the easiest way to put those in is just to use your right button to pan around a little bit, but just get the handle at the top of that walkway over the top, maybe just a little bit further in on top of that cursor. Okay, and you'll see why in a moment. Now, if I right click and then go to area and then say new area at cursor, that will put that area in the correct place, and it will also ensure that the walkway is fully embedded into that area, and that is critical. If the walkway isn't fully embedded, then they won't be connected. Okay, so the easiest way to tell whether they're connected or not is if the area is selected, it highlights the walkway. Okay, so if I press escape, so you wouldn't necessarily know that they're connected there, but if I select that area, automatically it highlights the walkway, so we can tell that it's actually connected together. Now, if I press escape and then I middle click on the walkway and select it that way, we can also look down on the data on this bottom left hand side, and it says inside area 1. Okay, so that's also telling us explicitly that it's inside this area 1, and that's great. So we know that's fine. So then what we need to do is then pan around with the right button and do the same at the other end. So I'm going to put that about there and then say right click, area, new area at cursor. Okay, and when I did that, you'll see it highlighted that as well. So I'm pretty confident that they're also connected. Now, in order for the simulation to work, we need something more complex than just two ends trying to get people to move from one end to the other. It's not a realistic scenario. So it's just part of the software. What we need to do is have at least two parts to the network. So what we're going to have to do is cut this walkway into two. Okay, so that's quite simple. All we need to do is to select it, right click, and then if we go down to walkway, one of the options is bisect. So if we just hit that, it then cuts it into two, and then we can escape. So now we have a network which should work. So all we need to do now is to look at the people parameters and the demand, which is how many people you want to go from one place to another, and then we should be able to see something happening. So let's go up to parameters. And there's a few things here. So we do need to look at people, but also terms is also one that we really ought to look at this stage. So let's just hit that. And we end up with this dialog box. So at the moment, it's saying it's going to try and get these people through between 8 and 9 o'clock. So this is your window. But I could say, okay, I want to simulate this to 8:25, say. So a 25-minute window. And we'll hit apply and okay. Okay, so that's all we need to sort out for the term. We've got a 25-minute window that we're going to be working to, and then we just go down to people. So this is the people dialog box. So at the moment we have nothing in here. If we just click the plus, it will automatically populate this with something. Okay, so a default person type, standard behavior, a color, and an avatar group. So we can say color-wise, maybe something yellow might be interesting. And then for the avatar group, we could say we only want adults. Okay. Now, if we look to the other tabs, there's some interesting stuff here. So we can have the sizes, also space, which is an interesting parameter, as this is the spacing of the people that it's going to try and work with. So especially at the moment when we're working with COVID-19 scenarios, this spacing might be an interesting parameter to explore. If we move on to motion, we can see we've got different speed parameters which we could edit if we wanted to, and there's also an attachment area if you wanted to attach other people to a person. Okay, so all we need to do there is say apply. Let's change that back, and okay. Okay, so now we need to move on demands. So just hit demand. There's a lot of stuff in here. I'm going to gloss over those now just to get something working, okay? But in the next session, we will be looking at demands in more detail, and we'll cover divisions there. So for now, I just want to go straight to demands. And there's a number of different tabs on the top. We just want this left-hand side one at the moment, so directed demand. And we're just going to hit the plus sign. And we're going to leave all of this as it is, just as the defaults that it comes in with. Okay, and we're going to say okay. And then we have a little matrix that we can then ask the system to send a number of people from one place to another. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to move this out of the way just a little bit here so we can see it. So if we want to go from area 1 to area 2, we can just click into the box and plant a number. So every time I click on one of these, you'll notice that Mobility Simulation is drawing in a yellow arrow, and that is showing you that I'm going from one area. So this box, any value that I put in there is going to be people coming from this side down to here. So in fact, that's what I want to do. So I'm just going to click into there and let's say, let's have 100 people. Okay. And I'm going to say, okay. So right at the very basic level, that's all we really need to do in order to configure a basic network, a basic demand, and we should now be able to run that simulation and see some people moving. So if we move up to the simulation tab, what we need to do is create a new simulation with the new parameters that we've just configured. So we just hit the plus button there. It comes up with a default name for it, simulation. You can change that if you wish. Hit OK. It will create a new simulation with these new trips that it's generated here. And then we need to highlight it and we need to make it current. So we need to activate the simulation. So we click the light bulb, and that is now the active simulation. And if we want to see it running, we hit play. And any moment now, we should start to see the people moving, and that is your basic simulation created. Now what you can do using your left button is you can actually move this around into a different view, zoom in a little bit, and you'll see you have actually created your first simulation. Okay, so now we're going to build on that by looking at a a little bit more of a complex simulation, but it's still pretty basic. It's going to be based around, as I said earlier, one of these sort of concertina queuing systems, and you can see on the right there various queuing systems that we see. Airports, for instance, attractions, they all have these, and so we're now going to watch a video on how to create that. Okay, so let's make a start on this then. So housekeeping first, we've just into a brand new model, and as in the previous session, there's a few things that we need to do. So number one, we're not in orthographic mode, so there's nothing displayed here, so it's in perspective mode. So to get it into orthographic, I just type O on the keyboard, and you can see it's now brought up, it's now in orthographic mode, and we really ought to be in that mode for generating a network. We also need to make sure that we're looking on plan, so just click on the top of the cube just to make sure that's working. And then over on the right hand side, if we go to the layers, just like last time, we need to add walk center lines, the walk connections, and then coming down we need the handles, so handle end and handle other. Okay, so that's just about all we need. So we're going to create one of these concertina systems. So I'm just going to scroll in a little bit with my middle mouse wheel just to get the scale roughly right. And then straight away, I'm just going to say right click, walkway, new walkway cursor. 25 meters, probably a little bit long. I'm going to say 15, I think. And maybe 2 meters wide is too wide for these sorts of systems. So I'm going to say 1.5 maybe. Okay, so there's our first walkway. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make some adjustments to this one because there's going to be a lot of copying and pasting. And if I set the parameters for the first one, then that'll be copied across to all the other ones, of course. So just select it with the middle button, right click, and adjust. Okay, so there are a few things we can do here. I think we can go with walled, so walled left and right, and the wall height is going to be something very small, so just so that it has a wall. I think that's probably enough for the moment. Anything else on the right hand side we need to do? No, we'll just leave it like that. That's great, just to make sure that they're walled. Okay, and then we're going to start to copy and paste these. So select it, right click, edit, copy, right click, edit, paste. And just keep pasting it. I think 3 or 4 of these will probably be about right. So one more should be great. Okay, so that's the beginnings of the system itself. So I think what we'll do is we'll pull, if I just move down a little bit, we'll get another one. So edit, paste, put that up there somewhere. One more over here. And what I'll do is I'll just select that end with the middle button, pick it with the left, and then I can pull it out a little bit like that. And I'll zoom out. And what I'll do is I'll bring this one out quite a long way. So something like that. And then paste another one. Somewhere over there. That should be okay. Okay, so what will happen is they'll come in from here, down here, and also from here. They'll join together here, go through a concertina system, out through here, through the what we can say is the passport control, and then out through to the baggage claim. So that's basically what's going to happen. So I'm going to take the end of this one, pull it round, something like that, then move it, I think, somewhere like that. And then we'll want a few more of these. So I'm going to edit, copy that, paste, and somewhere there. So a lot of pasting about to happen. Okay, and then I think one or two more just for the end. So that'll go over there, and we'll have another one over there like that. So just pan across with my right button. I'm going to move that one out of the way for a sec. Grab that end, pull that up to the top like so. And actually, we can probably leave that one where it is, have it roughly there. Okay, so that's the basic layout. And now we need to make connections between all these different ones. So we'll start at the top here. So I'll just zoom in. And what you do, you just select the handle, so the end with the middle button. So we just click that there. So there's no need to press Shift or Control or anything like that. Just a single click with the middle button selects them in sequence. And then we can just say right click, go down to walkway, and then new connection. Okay, it's simple as that. And press Escape to deselect it. Okay, now for ones like this where we want to connect 3 together, what we'll be doing is we basically do them one at a time. So I'll click the end of that one, select the end of that one, right click, down to walkway, new connection. Okay, and that looks fine. Press Escape. Then we click the end of that one and the end of that one. And you'll notice it selects the connection all the way up to here. That's fine, don't need to worry about that. Then just right click, walkway, new connection. Okay, and you can see that it's drawn this odd graphic here. That's just part of mobility simulation. You don't have to worry about that. As long as your center line is running like this, then that's worked. Okay, so that's actually fine. And I know that it's drawn this down here as well, and that's perfectly fine. Okay, so now we're going to connect these ends together. So select that one, down to walkway, new connection. Okay, and then up to this one, select that, new connection. Very repetitive, but this is how we do it. Now, this will be interesting. So if we click those two, new connection. So that has worked. That should be fine. Sometimes you need to be careful on these, on the geometry. But as long as the main center line is following what you want, then it's fine. Okay, so now we're going to join these together. So same as before. New connection. New connection. New connection. New connection. Okay, looks like we've got one more. New connection. Okay, so that's okay for this side. And if you look in title C, you'll get these odd graphics. But again, there's that's fine, nothing to worry about. So we need to do the same on the other side. So just clicking the ends and creating these new connections. And one more. Okay, so that's done that. And then just this last one, just to join those two together. Okay, so there's our network completed. So it's only one more thing that we need to do, and that's to add these people areas. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pan down, and what I want to do is I want to get the head of that handle just over the top of the cursor. Okay, and that's to make sure that when the area goes in, it's fully embedded in the area itself, and that is absolutely critical. As I said in the last session, that absolutely must happen in order for this to work. Okay, so I've positioned it there, and then I'll go to area, new area at cursor. Okay, so let's put that in. So we've got the area there. It's highlighted the walkway, so we know that that walkway is embedded in this area. So that's fine. So we can come out now, do the same again. Area, new area at cursor. That's highlighted that, so that's fine. And then if we scroll across, we can find this one, and we'll do the same. Area, new area at cursor, and that's highlighted that one. So that's fine. So there we are. That is the completed network, and the next stage will be to start looking at the people parameters and the demands. Okay, so now we're going to deal with the parameters for the simulation itself. So the first thing to do really is go to the parameters drop down. Terms is something that we ought to just quickly look at. So we'll just hit that. That just is basically giving us our time window for this particular simulation. So at the moment, it's set up from 8 to 8:30, so that's a 30-minute time window for this particular simulation. That seems okay to me for what we want to do. So we'll just close that down. And then the next one we need to look at is people. So I'm going to hit that. And we have this person types dialog box, which is currently empty. So this allows us to create a number of different people to be included in the simulation that behave slightly differently. So they can be different sizes, move in different ways. They can have other people attached to them if we want to do something like that. So what we're going to do, we're going to add a couple here. So I'll just click add, I'll do it twice, and we get two different types of people with parameters to match, like so. So let's start at the beginning. So we have the description, standard behavior. I want to change the color. We can select a color like so, maybe yellow for the other one. Okay, and then under avatar group, we can have one set as adults and others set as children. So we'll hit apply to that, and you'll see sometimes it just does that. So we have to accept that. It doesn't do it all the time. But it's good that we know that it sometimes happens. Okay. Okay, see, that's fine. Okay, so now we go to sizes. So I'm going to leave this data as it is. Under spacing, this is interesting for um, COVID-19 scenarios where we can adjust the spacing between individual people. So that might be an interesting one to explore. And then under motion, we have some speed parameters. So this person type 303 was the child. So I'm going to reduce the speed of that to 1 and then hit apply. Okay, so that's the people created. So we have these two different people, people types, should I say, one an adult, one a child, colored differently, and they'll move slightly differently as well. Okay, so I'm going to apply that, click OK. So the next thing we need to look at is demands. So if we go up to demands, what we can do is we can see demand divisions and demands. Those are the two that we're going to be looking at right now. So let's go to demand divisions. Okay, so what divisions enable us to do is to be able to create types, groups of types of people, and then assign the ratios to a particular simulation. So I might want 40% adults, 60% children, or vice versa, or you can split it up into as many different combinations as you want. So in this particular case, I'm going to hit plus. It's going to give us division number 1, and we're going to say maybe 40% adults in this particular case, and it'll automatically make the other one 60. So each division has to equal the totality of 100%. Okay. So no matter how many types you have here, whatever the ratios, always has to add up to 100. Okay, so that's for that one. And what I can do is I can create another one. And in this particular case, we'll say this one's going to be 90% adults and only 10% children. Okay. And what we will do is we will say that division 1 will come from here. So there's going to be lots of kids coming out of this one. And then from here, we'll say, we'll have the other division where it's, it's nearly all adults. Okay, so we can apply that and say okay. So let's set up the divisions, which is, as I say, the ratios of people and where they're coming from and going to. So next we go to the demands themselves. Okay. So it seems like there's one in here already. Let's just get rid of that. So this is how you would see it, and we just click plus, and then we have the name of the matrix, the mode, profile. We're just using a flat profile at the moment. Profiles is a more advanced subject, sort of outside of the scope of this basic simulation. So we're just going to go with the default profile. And then you've got the division. So if I click down there, you can see there's those two divisions in there that we just created. So we go with division 1, and then origin sector, destination sector. So we want the choice of all areas for this particular one. So I'm going to say okay to that, and then we have this matrix set up, which allows us to specify, if I move it out of the way a little bit, where we want people to come from and where we want them to go to. Okay, so for this particular division, so it tells us what we're working with up here. I'm going to click into this matrix, and what will happen is Mobility Simulation will draw an arrow telling me where it's going to be sending those people. So if I do that, you can see it's drawn this arrow. If I move it out of the way, you'll see it's drawn this arrow saying whatever number I put in here, it's going to generate those people and it's going to send them somehow through the network to get to here. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to say, okay, let's have 100 people. Okay, and that's all we need. And as you saw, as I click down, it moves the arrow, so we know exactly what we're doing. Okay, so that's enough for that particular one, because we said we wanted to have a different ratio of people coming from different areas, so we're going to use different division. So I can start another matrix. This time we're going to use division 2. Okay, and under this matrix, you can see it's division 2, we're going to say, okay, I want people from here, use the division 2 types, and we can have, I don't know, maybe 85 coming from there. Okay, that's fine. So that's all we need to do as far as specifying the type of people and where they're coming from and going to. So we can say okay to that. So for a fairly basic simulation, that's all we need to do. Now we're going to make a few changes in a little while to see what those how those changes can affect the simulation. But just so that we can see that we've got something that's actually running, we can go to the simulation tab, and you'll see there's already a base simulation in there. But if we hit run, it will tell us there's no trips defined, okay, because it's using the old data. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to create a new simulation based on the data that we've just created. So we do that by hitting the plus sign. It says, okay, what's the name of the simulation? And we can just say, okay, well, it's our first simulation. Yeah, okay. And then we need to make it the current simulation. Okay, so we need to click on that, and then we need to activate it by clicking on the light bulb. Okay, so now that's highlighted, and that is now the current simulation. And if we hit play, with any luck, in a few moments we'll see people start to come from the different areas. Okay, you can see them starting to come through. Okay, and what we can do is we can actually turn this into a 3D view and see these people start to come through. Okay, so that's great. So we've got people coming through here, as you might do with a with passport control. But of course, they're running straight through the controlled area. And what you need to do, we need to be able to change some parameters here to make this a little bit more realistic. Okay, so we'll just pause there. We'll go back to the plan view, and then we'll rewind that simulation. So what we need to do, we need to make some changes here for these particular walkways. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll select each one of these with the middle button, and then I'm going to right click and I'm going to say adjust. So you'll remember when we were creating the network, we went into here and we said, oh, okay, we're going to have walled left and right, and we put in this tiny little wall height. So now we're going to make some additional changes for this. So I think what we'll do is we'll change this keep parameter. So at the moment it's keep right. So everyone's trying to keep to the right. So that might be useful in certain situations, but for us, I think we'd like them to go wherever they feel they could have more realistic. So I'm going to click this apply to all button, so I only have to do this once, and I'm going to say none. Okay, and it applies that to all of these. Okay, so if I scroll down, we'll see there's a number of other parameters that we can use. So the first one that we're going to look at is this private one. So if I click that there, what that will do is that will only allow one person at a time into this short section of walkway. Okay, and that's how we'll start to see queuing forming by only letting one person at a time into here, as well as creating a delay. Okay, so we've made it private and one would only go in there at a time, so there'll be a little bit of waiting time. But what we really want to do is simulate, an inspection. So there's a delay parameter which we can also utilize. So from C to D, so in this direction, C to D, we want to put a delay of, say, 20 seconds. Okay, and that's applied that to all of those. Okay, so there's a lot of other parameters here that you can play with, but for the moment, I just want to use those. So we'll hit apply and close, and then escape. Okay, so now I'll just spin it back into that view. And now if we press play, we'll see some different behavior. I think see there's a child there. So there's no need to restart the or create a new simulation, I should say, when you're just making changes to the network, as I have done. It'll automatically take account of that. So if we zoom in here, we can actually see that only one person at a time is now going into these areas, and there is a delay of 20 seconds. So we're not running in real time, of course, we're in a multiple of real time. So you can see how that's working. Okay, so that's fine. We can see it's quite free flowing. There's no queuing or anything like that, so that's great. But what we could also do, we could say, okay, maybe we can simulate some problems with these. Maybe these are machine readers, and they might take more time, or there could be some sort of problem. So what we can do is we can just pause that, rewind that, go back to the plan view, and we could say maybe that these three are the ones which have got an issue. So we could say apply to all, go to the delay, and we could say there's a 90-second delay on these ones. Apply, close, escape. Okay, and then replay. And we'll see what happens here. And I think we'll see these staying for much longer, and then we'll start to see a queue start to build up along here. So you can see these guys are waiting there much longer now. These two are falling through, no problem at all. You can see we're starting to get a bit of a queue. So we can show very, very easily in this very simple example how we can model a particular situation for people movement, and then see what the effect of changes might be on that movement as a realistic simulation. Okay, so what we can do now is try and make it look a little bit more realistic. I'm just going to pause the simulation now, so we'll zoom in and we'll see that these people are, they're avatars, but it would be nice if they looked a little bit more realistic. So what we can do is we can go to display and then content. Okay, so this is where we can load more realistic avatars for us to use. So for pedestrians, I can say add, and then it gives us a list of the avatars which are built in. Okay, so what we can say is we can click on that man at the top there and then just scroll down, hold shift, and then select the one at the bottom, that woman number 8. So we've got a few of these people selected, and then we can say OK. They will be loaded into this simulation, and we can say apply and OK. And you can see they've now been changed to something approximating real people. Okay, and we can keep that running. You can see it's a little bit more realistic. Okay, so hopefully that was interesting to you. We've created a basic simulation using a number of different tools for the network creation, different demands and different divisions, and we looked at a couple of different scenarios for this particular situation. I hope you enjoyed it. Okay, so that was great. But what we are now going to do is look at creating it's a very simple simulation, but what we're really trying to show is how we can use basic imagery or drawings or things of that nature to help us build the simulations in the first place. So sometimes it might be useful to use some sort of imagery or drawing to trace over when you're creating a network, and we can do that by using an image. So I have an image here. If we have a quick look, so I've taken this from a Revit model. I've just done a screenshot. We've got the I've got the image here, and if we zoom in, you can see it's dimensioned up. So in order to get this into mobility simulation at the correct size, we need to find out what the pixel count is per meter. Okay, so that's what you'll have to do. You'll have to count these pixels to find out how how many there are per meter, and you'll see why we need that in a moment. So I'm going to go back to mobility simulation. Okay, so I'm in a brand new model, and I'm going to Just click that to get us into the right orientation. Zoom in a little bit. And then we go to display and display content. Okay, that's the display content dialog box. And we go to images and we hit that button there. Okay, and then we need to find our image. So it's a JPEG, I believe. There we are. And we click open, and then it asks us for a little bit more information. So, what is it? I'm going to leave it as a map, horizontal or vertical orientation. So horizontal in this case, and then size, meters per pixel. Okay, and this is where our pixel counting came in. So I've already counted mine, so I know it's that value. And then we click OK, and that adds it to the file, but it's not going to display it. Okay, it's just added it to the network, and now we need to display it. So all we do is right-click, go to Display, New Image at Cursor. It will give us this dialog box. We just need to click down to find the one, capture, that's the one, and hit OK. And there's our image. Okay, and that will be at the right scale. So we can confirm this if we go to View on the right hand side there. You can see there's a grid that we can pull up. So if I say put the grid on, see it's quite a big grid, and we'll reduce that to 7.3. So 7.3, and then we can move it around, and you can see that's pretty much spot on. So we know we're at the right scale. Turn that grid off. Okay, and then from there we can just carry on as we would do normally. So we can say new walkway cursor, maybe three meters wide. There we are, and I'll just move this around so we could have people coming from outside. Move it into there, then create another one. Just 1 meter this time. Move that down to there. Zoom a little bit. Just as with the previous tutorials, just click on the ends, walkway, new connection, like so. And then we'll need to add the areas, but we can't really see where the cursor is. So what we can do is we can come over onto the images side, turn that image off, and then we can just put that around there like we used to do before. New area cursor, it's highlighted that, so we know that's good. And then we do the same on this side. Area, new area cursor, it's highlighted that way, so we know that's okay. Then we can turn the image back on. And in fact, we can rotate this now. And just for a very, very simple simulation, just so that we can see it happening, we'll just go straight to demands, add a quick matrix. That's the right direction. So we'll just say 200 there. Okay. And then I'm going to turn off the walkways and the areas. And then just go to the simulation, create a new simulation, make it the current simulation, and play. There we are. And that's how you can use imagery to guide your network development.